Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening.
If you've got a mobile phone, if you would like to put it on silent, thank you. Right, welcome back to Thomas, uncovering more of a mostly ill or misunderstood book, the Bible. The priest class and lawyers, QCs, etc. have a handle on what is contained therein to varying degrees and how to wield it to varying degrees. Seemingly not for our benefit. Thomas explains how this hidden knowledge is related to things such as debt and bankruptcy and a lot more. Please welcome back Thomas.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for those who've turned up. How many were here last week? More or less everyone. Right. Okay, I'm surprised to see so many people back from last week because of the subject matter, because everybody doesn't want to know about the Bible to their own hurt and whatever. But anyway, this week, well, last week I was giving you 5 loaves. This week I'm going to give you 2 fishes. You remember the story about the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, don't you? And Jesus, 10,000 people, what was it, 15,000 people? He was feeding them with 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Well, that's an allegory. It's got nothing to do with food. It's got to do with information. Anyway, that proverb there says everything about your schooling. Right? You go to school, you're dragged in at the age of 4. In fact, it's 3 now, isn't it? Or is it even 2? They're getting the children and shove them into classrooms so that they can come up with a group mentality. So you can all start to be thinking the same things at the same time and all thinking the same way, being indoctrinated. That's what that proverb's all about. Yeah, may God, I've just got one question to ask. Is that the best you can do with your 6 days of creation? Or is there more to it? We went through this last week a little bit. Stand back, we don't know how big this gets. Black's Law Dictionary, whale is a royal fish, because God made the whales on the 6th day as well, did he not? But he did make it before he created man in his own image, after his own likeness. And the General Registry Office. Has anybody watched that chase? The chase? I have a strange sleeping pattern. I should go back to being a milkman. And it's on most of the way through the night on some flaming challenge TV or whatever it's called. And I'm watching it a couple of weeks ago, and this girl comes on, and she happens to be a registrar at the General Registry Office. And that Bradley Walsh said, blah, blah, blah. And he said, yeah, we're God's accountants. So those registrars must know what's going on, or have an idea what's going on. Maybe not as much as I know, but they certainly got a sniff at what's going on. It's all fraud, everything. It's based around the concept of what you know as a person. And if you've been coming to this place for any length of time, you'll understand the relevance of a person. Does anybody not understand the relevance of a person? Please say so now, and I'll explain what that is. Everybody know what a person is? Okay, now this person is recorded in an office, and through ignorance on our own mum and dad's behalf, and our continuing ignorance as we grow up, we damage ourselves with it. Now, I'll break this down properly so that any people who've not got a real knowledge of what a person is, this explains it. This is from Black's Law again. It's a man considered according to the rank he holds in society, to all the rights to which the place he holds entitles him, and the duties it imposes him. So it's a man who's considered. Considered is deemed to be. Deemed to be. Not really a person, but it's a man who's deemed to be a person, according to the rank he holds in society. The rank: a master, a baron, an earl, a king, a lord, an MP, a police officer, a school teacher, a bricklayer. And what society is that? What's the law society? Because everybody here, apart from 3, are in the law society. Whether you're not a learned member of the law society, but you are a member of the law society, because that society is governed by your own law, and that law is from the law society. And all laws that go through Parliament are vetted and looked at, scrutinised meticulously by the law society. Your MPs have got a solicitor advising on everything they do, and your government does as well. Also your Queen. So in that society, you're deemed to be a person with all the rights to which the place he holds. Well, what place do you hold? You must be holding something in that society. Well, I'll tell you what that is. That's your birth certificate. Everyone's got a birth certificate. Everybody's got documentation which is related and comes from the issue of that birth certificate. So you are entitled to the rights of that person when you hold that person. And the duties it imposes. There's no getting out of it. You can have your human rights. I don't want human rights, thank you. I'm not human. I'm just peculiar man, that's all. And of course, those rights can be taken away, and they are taken away at will. At will. When your Queen wants you to fight for your country, whether it be Home Guard or whatever, regular army, she drafts you into service. And that's one of your duties, to be a responsible citizen and act in the public interest. Not in your interest, the public interest is what is paramount in this. Of course, God says he doesn't like publicans. Right, 1953 Birth Act. Right, just want to say this. I think, therefore I am. That was by Descartes in 1596 to 1650. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I am not cultured in your culture, so I call it Descartes. I've come out of that culture, you see. Anyway, I like to call this the collective hallucination. Right? Birth, deaths. Anybody got children? Doesn't matter how old they are. You went along to the registry office and registered them, didn't you? Why? Because it's the law. No, it's not. It's against the law to register your children. Really? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll read it out to you in a second. I'm not talking about it's against that law, because it is against this law. But it's also against your legal. Right? This is Section 20 of the Birth, Deaths and Registration Act of 1953. Be it enacted by the Queen's most excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the Lords Spiritual and Temporal, and the Commons, in this present Parliament assembled, by the authority of the same, as follows. Registration of births. Part 1. Paragraph 1. Section 1. Subject to the provisions of this part of this Act, the birth of every child born in England or Wales shall be registered by the Register of Births and Deaths for the sub-district in which the child was born, entering in a register kept for that sub-district such particulars concerning the birth as it may be prescribed. And different registers shall be kept, and different particulars may be prescribed for live births and stillbirths, respectively. So let's analyse it, shall we? Because the devil is in the detail. Subject to the provisions of this part of the Act, the birth of every child born in England or Wales shall be registered by the Register of Births and Deaths. Right. How many people were born in England? Physically? England is a legal fiction. Yeah. And for that matter, so is Wales. And so is Scotland. We were all born through our mother's waters on this land. Not England. This land was... Who called this land England? I don't remember God saying in this book. Nowhere in this book does it say England. It does say about Egypt. The land of Egypt, the house of bondage. Right. Go down to London and have a look at all the Egyptian stuff down there in Westminster. It's incredible. So none of you were born in England, and none of your children were born in England. Okay. Right, let's move on. So it's entered into a register kept for that sub-district, such particulars concerning the birth, as may be prescribed. Prescribed. That sounds like woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, because you have taken away the keys of knowledge. So it's done before. And different registers shall be kept, and different particulars may be prescribed for live births and stillbirths. Okay, so even if you believe in England or Wales, and I'm wrong saying that England or Wales doesn't exist, then we come to a colon which says this: provided that where a living newborn child is found exposed and no information as to the place of birth is available, the birth shall be registered by the Registrar of Births and Deaths for the subject in which the child is found. Whoa, hang on a sec. Hang on. So the only reason and legal reason anybody here could go and register their newborn would be if it was found exposed and no information as to the place of birth is available. Exposed in the law books is basically abandoned and left to left in the sight of the public. In other words, you give birth in a marketplace, and you abandon it and leave it at the mercy of itself. So that's what that says. So you cannot go and register your child unless it's been exposed and no information as to the place of birth is available. That's the only time you can go and register your child. I registered my child. She's 26 now. Or is it 27? 27. Why didn't I read that? Because I did the same as everybody else. Monkey see, monkey do, follow the crowd, not look at what's going on in Parliament, not looking at these acts and so on and so forth. Now, to my knowledge, and I've watched a lot of stuff online, and I've been to a lot of these meetings of these so-called gurus who are going around talking about nonsense, and they are talking about nonsense. And by the way, this birth certificate is not a bond. It's got nothing to do with a bond. But anyway, and there's no money in it for anybody in that birth certificate. So it goes on to say, the following persons shall be qualified to give information concerning the birth. That is to say, the father and the mother of the child. Why does it say the person? Why does it say the persons of the child? Why does it say the father and the mother? I thought fathers and mothers were persons. And it goes on. There's no need for me to go any more into that. I don't see any reason I need to speak any more about that, because that's self-explanatory. Oh, so you go to register and you register your child? That's basically saying, I don't want it, you can have it. You can have it. It's not a very nice thing to do to your own child, is it? I mean, years ago, when I was born, thousands of years ago, it bloody well feels like it, you know, my mum and dad had an excuse. There's no excuse for anybody today, because all this information is available at a click of a button. All of it. I mean, for you to find this information out, if you are, say, over 40, you had to go down to the Houses of Parliament and say, I want to see that Birth and Death Act. Give us it here. Let's have a look at that Registration Act, and then you get taken down to the vaults if they've got time, and then you can have a look at it yourself. But even then, because we've been educated by this system that takes away our ability to read and digest and dissect every bit of that legislation, we're not going to understand this. But I look at things very closely these days. So, but that's the Registration of Birth Act, and it's still there now. Exactly the same. No doubt they'll do something when this gets out, because this will get out, right? And some of these other people start going, whoa, look at that, didn't know that. Okay, let's what do we have a look next? This is going to be a fairly short presentation, by the way, and we can use the second half to talk things through if you want, because there's only a few of us, and you can ask your questions and see if I know the answers. I might not know them, but Fraud Act. So now we know a man isn't a person. We know that. We know what happens is that when we've registered our children, we've abandoned them, we've given away our property. Oh, talking about property, I need to pull myself up over this. Last week I said something which was correct, but I omitted to say, use it the other way as well. I said that a woman was man's property, a wife is a man's property. That's quite correct, but then a husband is a woman's property as well. So if anybody was offended last week, I do apologise, but it's reciprocal both ways. So if you're married and he's saying to you, see, I told you you're my property, dig him in the ribs and say, no, you're mine as well. Fraud Act. So we know a person isn't a man, right? It's only the rank he holds in society attached with the rights and duties of that person which he holds, right? And the thing you hold is your birth certificate. That's the only way and the only evidence and the only document which ties you to that society, right? That's why they say in court, what's your name? And you say, oh, Mr. Joe Bloggs, or Mrs. Sally Housewife or whatever. Where do you live? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, we've got them on our record here. Yeah, it must be that person that lives there. Right, well, that's how they get you on that. But anyway, again, be it enacted, this is the Fraud Act 2006. I'll stress this at the top. It says, an act to make provision for and in connection with criminal liability for fraud, obtaining services dishonestly. Isn't the birth certificate of fraud?
Of course it is.
Well, hold on a sec. Okay, let's move along. Fraud. This is section 1, going from paragraph 1 subsection 1 to 4. A person is guilty of fraud. Now, it should just say, it should just stop there. A person is guilty of fraud, because that's it. That's a fact. A person is guilty of fraud. But it carries on. If he is in breach of any sections listed in subsection 2, which provide different ways of committing the offence. These sections are fraud by false misrepresentation, fraud by failing to disclose information, fraud by abuse of position. A person who is guilty of fraud is liable, on summary conviction, to imprisonment not exceeding 12 months or to a fine not exceeding in a statutory limit, a statutory maximum, or both. On conviction on indictment, to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 10 years or a fine. Subsection 3 applies in relation to Northern Ireland as if a reference to 12 months were a reference to 6 months. Fraud by false representation. A person is in breach of this section if he dishonestly makes a false representation and intends by making the representation to make gain for himself or another, or cause loss to another, or to expose another to risk of loss. A representation is false if it is untrue or misleading, and the person making it knows that this is, or might be, untrue or misleading. Representation means any representation as to fact or law, including representation as to the state of mind of the person making the representation or any other person. A representation may be express or implied. For the purposes of this section, a representation may be regarded as made if it, or anything implying it, is submitted in any form to any system or device designed to receive, convey, or respond to communications with or without human intervention. So Section 1 and Section 2 of the Fraud Act is fraud. The Fraud Act itself is fraud. How stupid is that? I mean, does anybody need that explained? Because if anybody's not getting that, let me know and I'll explain it to you. The Fraud Act. So, okay. A person is guilty of fraud if he makes false representation. So you're in court for speeding or whatever the case may be, right? And the judge says, "What's your name?" And you say, "It's Joe Bloggs, 2 Acacia Avenue, Blackpool or Lytham St Anne's, filed." That's misrepresentation. You cannot be a person with the name Joe Bloggs. Why? Because it says on your birth certificate, cannot be used as evidence of identification. In other words, it's not you. It's a graven image. Thou shalt not make any graven image of thee, nor of anything else in the earth, and so on and so forth. That's the second commandment of God, which is their commandment in the Fraud Act. But the only people who read this are persons. Why are they the only people who read it? Because that's the only people who it is made against, a person. Right? So you're falsely representing yourself in court by failing to disclose information. Whether you know it or not, it doesn't matter. If you don't know that oh, I thought it was me. No, it says further on, even if you don't know it, you're still committing fraud. But now you lot know it. So if you carry on in that, you're committing fraud and you've got no excuse. So, fraud by abuse of position. Hello. I've seen you going up 50 miles an hour in a 30 miles an hour limit. For you, I'm PC Blogs. Really, PC Blogs. And I'm PC Plod, and I witnessed it. There's no such thing as a police constable. It's a legal bloody fiction. He's a man. We are all men. We are all born equal in the eyes of the Lord and the law. He's made another legal fiction of his legal fiction. And he's trying to get you to commit fraud by saying, yeah, my name's, you know, Joe Six-Pack, Sally Housewife or whatever. Yeah, that's me. I live there. That's fraud. But he's suborned you into fraud. And that's perjurious as well, what he's doing, what the coppers doing. They don't know this, obviously, because they're bloody thick coppers. We know that. They wouldn't be bloody doing the job if they had any noodle in them. But anyway, it's well paid. They want well paid. They want morons to control the people who are trying to find out what's going on. And they've got guns and tasers and big sticks and riot shields and all the rest of it. But they have made a graven image of a graven image. So they're in fraud as well. And the people who sent them are in fraud. And your government's fraud by selling you that there's a place called England. So that's the Fraud Act. If you want me to go on more about it, I will. But I've told you, you're all in fraud. Do you have an excuse when you're in fraud? No, not really. You have a slight excuse by saying, well, I didn't know it. But according to that act, it doesn't matter whether you know it or not. You're still guilty of it. Bankruptcy. Well, see where we are now. Bankrupt. Originally and strictly a trader who secretes himself or does other certain acts tending to defraud his creditors. Well, who's your creditor? There's only one creditor. Whose property is everything's? It's God's property, not your property. If it was your property, you'd be able to take it when you leave this wonderful planet called Earth, and your soul or your spirit goes somewhere else, you'd be able to take it with you. So it ain't yours, and it was already here before you got here. Yeah? So whose property, or who's your creditor? God. And you have defrauded God. Why? Because you have secreted yourself. Secreted means hide away from. Right? Or does certain other acts tending to defraud your creditor. So your creditor is God because he made everything. Right? And we know that to be true in copyright because he made the first claim. Nobody made a claim of making the heavens on earth, did they? Only God. Whatever God is. Don't ask me what God is. All I know is his spirit. Right? He's not come up to me and said, hello, Tom. Obviously, he's spoken to me sometimes, but I don't hear him. Things fall into my hands and I go, wow, look at that. I didn't know that. So, you wear a mask, and your mask is your birth certificate. So you're taking property which is his, which he give you dominion over, right, and transferred it with everybody else into a legal fiction, which is another graven image, called England, which then put it into the crown, which is a false idol, which you worship. Worship means to obey, right? So you've cheated the Creator out of everything. Right, okay. A debtor commits an act of bankruptcy in each of the following cases. If in England or elsewhere he makes a conveyance or assignment of his property to a trustee or trustees for the benefit of his creditors generally. If in England or elsewhere he makes a fraudulent conveyance, gift, delivery or transfer of his property or any part thereof, if in England or elsewhere he makes any conveyance or transfer of his property or any part thereof, or creates a charge thereon, which would under this or any other act be void as a fraudulent prevalence if he were adjudged bankrupt. So you took property, or we have all took property, from one trust, which is the trust that God gave us and had in us. And because we don't trust God anymore, we've taken that trust and put it over here into a legal fiction that we created, equal to the false idol of the ox that was made back in the days of Moses or whatever. And you're defrauding God. Well, good luck to us all on that one, eh? If he ever comes back and says, right, that's enough, I've had enough of this crap. Right? So, bankruptcy. Anybody gone bankrupt? Let's say half a dozen people put their hands up and say, yeah, I've gone bankrupt. You have not gone bankrupt. No man has ever gone bankrupt. No man. And here's the reason. You've been charged with bankruptcy. Everyone who's gone bankrupt has been charged with bankruptcy and then discharged. If you're charged with something, you're guilty of it. So if you're guilty of it, that must mean you can't be discharged. You're a guilty bankrupt. But they need you to continue the scam, because if without you being able to operate in the world and get credit and get a bank account and all the rest of it, the world will fall flat on its bloody face. Right? So they discharge you after a certain amount of time. Go and do it again. Go ahead. You take up that birth certificate again, go. That's why you're discharged. You can't be charged with something, be guilty of it and then discharged from it. Now, in the corporate world, if, for example, if Asda was to go bust tomorrow, well, let's take the latest one. What's it? Carillion. Right, and there's a lot of people work there, and there's a lot of people be stuffed by them, right? And 6 years go down the line, and they try to bring it back to life and say, we're starting up a business and it's going to be a firm of lawyers and bankers, because that's what it was just a firm of lawyers and bankers, and we're going to call it Carillion, and we're going to have our offices in the same place we were, and we're just going to be hiring subcontractors. We don't really have any of our own men, but we have subcontractors. We do take on apprenticeships, but, you know. And we're calling it Carillion. You go along to a company now to register the firm, what happens? No chance. You cannot register Carillion again. That is a dead corporation. You've gone bankrupt and you were guilty of it, and there's no way you can come back as Carillion again. Your directors can, but they'll have to call it a different name, like Carillion 2020. Or whatever the case may be. So if a company goes bankrupt, it stays bankrupt. Right? And the reason is, right, because it has no life. It has no real life to give to call itself Carillion again. But a man has a life. Right? And that's why they need him to continue in the fraud and discharge you. So that hopefully explains bankruptcy to you. Any questions there? I'm sure there will be a bit later. Have I gone through all them already? Wow. Yeah. Well, you all know about this, don't you? The Equality Act. Does anybody know? A couple of years ago, we've done a talk about the Equality Act. Does anybody remember? Well, I won't go into great detail about it, but it's 2010, right? And it's to do with everybody in the workplace has to be treated equal. And And even when you go shopping, you've got to be treated equal. Any sort of commerce whatsoever, it has to be on an equal basis. You know, like they're building ramps outside the pubs for people with wheelchairs, and disabled toilet access, and workstations in the workplace for people who are in wheelchairs, and this for people who are deaf, and that for people who are blind. So it's mainly aimed at the disabled people with a disability. Now, they have to be treated equally as everybody else, obviously. I mean, it's only fair and it's only right. Well, looking through this Equality Act, I couldn't believe what I'd come across. And here's what I'd come across. And it goes right the way through the Act. And it talks about stables, members of stables, and devils. Did you know that you were a devil according to your government? And they're not telling lies, are they? No. Devil. There's one act going back to, I think it was 1690 or something, and it's called the Declaration of Confession of Faith Ratification Act. A wonderful document. And it's the only act that I've ever come across where the word man, God, Satan, devil is used. Wonderful act. You want to read it. But again, it's written by the Satanists. But it is a good act, which, by the way, your legal system absolutely takes no notice of whatsoever, and no cognizance of it whatsoever. Anyway, so it's talking about where a firm or proposed firm, A, that's a firm or a proposed firm, is required by the schedule to take a step in relation to an interested disabled person, B. So A is a firm and B is a disabled person. And it goes on about costs and stuff, this and you know, the disabled person has to bear this cost and so on and so forth. And then it goes on, this is a paragraph, this is what section is this? I can't see what section it is, but it's right the way through the Act anyway. This paragraph applies where A is a barrister or a barrister's clerk. And the relevant matter is deciding to whom to offer pupillage or tenancy. Description of disabled person is the next to it. It says a person who is or has notified that the barrister, or that notified the barrister that the person may be an applicant for the pupillage or tenancy. And pupillage or tenancy, an act for the pupillage or tenancy, the pupil or tenant is the disabled person. And then it goes on, the advocates, which is further down in section 48. This paragraph applies where A is an advocate or an advocate's clerk. The relevant matter is deciding who to offer to take as a devil or to whom to offer membership of a stable. And then alongside that, so that's the matter in hand, and it's addressed to an advocate, which is a barrister or whatever. Right. Now, do we take this type of disabled person to be a member of our state or the stable? And it says, description of a disabled person, a person who applies or has notified the advocate that the person may apply to be taken as a devil or a member of the stable. Well, you keep animals in stables, don't you? You keep horses and sheep and cattle and all that sort of thing. Anyway. Right, okay. And the relevant matter, the next one down, says this. The relationship with a devil or membership of a stable. So that's what the applicant has to take into account. And it says, an applicant to be taken as a devil or to become a member of the stable. And it says, the devil or a member. So every disabled person in England, Wales, to which this act was brought out for, is the devil or a member of a stable. In other words, a devil or an animal. That's your government telling you that. And because it's the Equality Act, and they cannot be treated any less than or any more than anybody else, that means everybody is a devil or a member of the stable. That's it. It's the Equality Act, 2010. So don't think they're not telling you. They know what you've done, and they know who you are. Now, I put a Freedom of Information request in about this to, I think it was the Attorney General. It's up there. Go and have a look. Just type in Nethy, N-E-T-H-Y, on the Freedom of Information site, and you'll come up with all my Freedom of Information requests. I don't bother with them now. It's a few years ago since I found this. And they come up with the usual answer. We have not classed this request as a Freedom of Information request, but as normal business, and redirect you to this site. And lo and behold, this site is a barrister's site or something. The link's still up there. You can have a look yourself. And you click on the link, bingo, it brings up this site, and it says barristers who pupil devils. There's a month's course and this, that, and the other you can go on. So you can be a pupillage, and you can be an advocate to a devil. So the barristers know that you're a devil. Now that you know you're a devil, we don't know this though, do we? But you're all lovely people, don't get me wrong. This is your government. And they're only following this. They're only following this. Because this is what this says. 666 is the number of a man. Here is wisdom. The number of a man. You're numbered when you're registered. Right? You act for it. You speak for it. And you even think it. You even think you are that person. And you think that this government or any other government worldwide has got authority over you, but they only hold that authority through this token. Here we go. The birth certificate is a valuable token. Do your Freedom of Information request to the registry office, or go on the FOI and type in registration and passport office or whatever it is, and look down. Just type in the word token to search, and it'll come up with something like this. It's a valuable token, your birth certificate. Right now, here's the definition of a token in the law dictionary. It's a sign or a mark, a material evidence of existence of a fact. Thus, cheating by false tokens implies the use of fabricated or deceitfully contrived material objects to assist the person's own fraud and falsehood in accomplishing the cheat. Your birth certificate is a token. Don't believe me, go to the registry office and ask them. Just say, hey, what's this bit? What is it? And they'll say it's a token. That's what a token is. A sign or a mark, a material evidence of the existence of a fact. Thus, cheating by false tokens implies the use of fabricated or deceitfully contrived material objects to assist the person's own fraud and falsehood in accomplishing the cheat. That's in the law dictionary. That's not me telling you that. That's not my thoughts. That's what it says. So your birth certificate is a token, and it's a valuable token, but it ain't no value to you. That's how they enslave you, because you have stolen property which is not yours and put it in a big pot called the Commonwealth, public interest fund and all the rest of it. Yeah, birth certificate is a valuable token. They do not register people, they only register events. What event did they register? But they don't register people and register events. What's the event that they register? No. Well, they register the birth of a new being. But they register the abandonment, the unlawful abandonment of a father and a mother and or of their children, and leave it to the public to look after the child. That's what family allowance is all about. That's what your 200 or 300 quid when your child's born you get for buying a pram or whatever, and that's what your free milk's all about. Because they have to feed that child, because you've abandoned it. It's now become public property, and you stay that way to the rest of your life. You're public property. You're not the property of the Crown. The Crown doesn't exist. It's a legal fiction. Right? You're public property. There, you know, there's a guy, I don't know whether you took any notice of me last time I was here, and if you haven't, you should look at him. And he's called Servant King, and he's on YouTube, and he's done 23.5 hours of video on stuff that I'm talking about, which I've learnt off, and and also learnt off this. But these 23.5 hours he's done is fantastic. He can fit into that, obviously, a hell of a lot more than I can here. But I'm digging deeper more than he's put out. I'm not saying he doesn't know all this, but he's not putting it out. He's giving you, he's signposting, look at this, look at that, look at this. Right?
It's the Confusion and Unravel programme.
That's right. It's 23.5 hours. Start from the beginning. And if you feel like educating yourself a bit more, buy his videos, because he's got 42.5 hours worth of webinars as well, which he just talks over something like Skype, but it's not Skype. So, what's this event that they register? The abandonment. It's called an atonement, really. Right? And we carry on that that public property role till we die or till we wake up and start looking at it and going, oh, hang on, what's all this about? You know, come out of him, my people, be not partakers of her iniquities and plagues and all the rest of it. So that's what the event mentions, just the event. Right? Because now we've got something that's ours. There's a book there that a fella I know wrote. I think he's a Freemason, I'm not sure. And his book's entitled Why We Is God. Now, here's the interesting thing. Here's all these free men on the land who are going to grab hold of this, and if they start using this, by God, the law's going to come down on like a ton of bricks. So if this actually goes out, a privy token, a false sign of mark, forged object, a counterfeited letter, a key, a ring, used to deceive persons and thereby get possession of property. A false privy token is a false privy document or sign, not such as calculated to deceive men generally, but designed to defraud. One or more individuals cheating by such false token is not indictable by common law. You cannot take your government, your registrar who registered your children, your MP or any other one to court and get them to answer that. So the people all together as one who voted this in, right? The gods, the semi-gods, the little gods, right? Have all voted this in for the birth certificate, and anybody using it cannot take their government, their elders, their priests, their vicars, their rabbis, or anybody else in the church or the government to charge over it, because it's not indictable by common law. It is indictable by another law, but not by common law. And common law is the only thing that goes on in any government. It's all common law because the commoners make the bloody law. Your representatives only vote these laws into existence because you asked them to. My God, how frightening is all this? So are we all knackered? Well, no, we're not knackered because there's a way out. This book is so much more than a book. That's why they're frightened of it. That's why they want to get shut of it. That's why they made many revisions of it. You know, there's this one which is the one appointed to be used in a court or a church. A court is a church, by the way. You know, your House of Commons is a church and your House of Lords is a church. Right? Don't think it isn't, because it is. They all say prayers before they start and all the rest of it. Right? And every court says they say the prayers there. Right? So this can be used as evidence against the satanic things that are going on in this world and amongst all your governments and amongst powers that are hidden. Now, they've hid this stuff from us for such a long time. Now, I don't know anybody else that's picked this up. And I don't know anybody that's picked that up. That's your birth certificate, right? Which is not a bond, it's something else. So don't think we've all got these millions in the bank waiting for us to go and claim. No. No, they haven't done their homework. They've seen bond and go, wow. No, it's not a bond. And I got through half time. Wow. Time for a smoke list. Thanks a lot, folks. I hope we'll come back in the second half. And we'll probably have questions, and if I know the answers, I'll tell you. If I don't know the answers, there we go. You've come back. Thank you. There you go. Second commandment. Thou shalt not make any graven image.
Does that include coinage?
No, it's not. It's not against the law to use money.
Well, wouldn't you say that's a graven image?
The face on it is a graven image, yeah. Let's go back to this bankruptcy. I knew there was another part to it I wanted to say to you. Section 149. For any and all purposes of this Act, a corporation can act by any of its officers authorised in that behalf under the seal of the corporation. A firm may act by any of its members, and a lunatic may act by his committee or curator bonus. If you've got a law dictionary, have a look up the word curator bonus. So, only lunatics, firms and corporations can go bankrupt. That's what it says. That's why when you're a man, you're discharged. You can't go bankrupt. Because it's needed, your life is needed, and your life is needed to use that name, that birth certificate, that privy token for this scam to be able to work. The word man has no entry in the Bankrupt Act. Woman is, though. But don't forget, she's got equal rights now. An equal franchise, because she has been assimilated. Last week I said the very first page of the Equal Franchise Act, which I think I'm right in calling it, that the Equal Franchise Act was when women got the vote. It says the Equal Franchise Act for women to be assimilated into England or the UK or whatever country they call it, I don't know, Great Britain, England, Wales, whatever. Assimilated means to take up mentally. That's what the word assimilated means. So all you women who had a free reign before the act come about. Now you are a franchisee of England or Wales or Great Britain or the United Kingdom, whatever you want to call it. Still a dead corporation. So a man cannot go bankrupt, only charge, hence a man gets discharged to go and secrete his face to continue the scam. Hide your face against God. God says you hide your face against me, I hide my face against you. Now, secrete, to conceal or hide away, particularly to put property out of the reach of his creditors, either by corporally hiding it or putting in the title of another's name, or otherwise hindering creditors from levying on it or attaching it. So you took God's property which he gave you dominion over. Now the public have dominion over it. Public is a very dirty word, and common is a very dirty word. Common means equal to many. In other words, you only have the rights that the mob tell you you have. You only have human rights. You cannot have human rights and God-given rights. Two of them are in total opposition to each other. A human is not a man. The word human does not appear in this book. This is the book of the law, the highest and final authority in law. The highest. So you stole his property that he granted and stuck it in a pot. That's the end of the slideshow anyway. Now, the property that you were granted, well, he give you the land, he give you the birds, he give you the sea, he give you the fish in the sea, he give you all the animals on the earth, so on and so forth. Anybody got a dog? Anybody got a dog in this place? Is it chipped? No. No. Anybody got any animals? Livestock? Yeah. What have you got? No, what have you got? Sheep, cows? Or what? Yeah. Are they chipped? No. Are they registered? Some. You sold them? No, some are. But some are. The ones that are not yours. Yeah, because they'll come and do whatever you want to, inject them with all sorts of vaccines and God knows what. No, sorry? They will do. But they will. It's happened to somebody I know in Scotland. They came along, registered their property, and we're going to vaccinate them. And he was on the phone to me about 6 weeks ago saying, what can I do about it? There's nothing you can do about it. I don't know. What is it, the Ministry of Agriculture, whoever it is, where the bailiffs were there and everything to assist them. He rang me, well, I said, don't know what you're going to do. Don't know why you're asking me. You know what I've done? I've come out of the system, completely out of the system. When you're in the system, the only rights that you have are the rights that the public want to give you. And everything's in the public interest, and they're not yours anyway, because they are the state's. Because it says that all property is vested in the Crown or the Queen, right? So none of us have any property. No property, no animals, no land. You know, when we spoke about it last week, you know, if you want to build an extension on your house, you have to ask the council. If it was your property and you knocked it down, because it's yours, I don't want it anymore, I thought I'd knock it down, what would happen? Well, you'd be in right trouble with the council. The listed buildings, you know, people go out and buy grade 2, 1 or grade 4 or whatever listed buildings, and they want to build extensions or want to paint the place or something. Oh no, you can't do that. Oh no, it has to go through a planning committee and all the rest of it, and we'll decide whether you can make improvements or extensions on your property.
What about the property not in the UK?
As in, where?
Well, wherever.
Well, are you talking about in a legal fiction country, or are you talking about an area of land which is not in a legal fiction country? Well, it's the same thing. It's the same. Different countries have more rules than others, but it's still their property. But it's not really their property. They hold a title to it. Right? They only hold a title, and you are a registered keeper, and you are in fiefdom, and you have to pay land taxes, and if you want to sell it, you've got to pay all the other taxes that go along with it. Just prove it's not yours, you know. And you have to pay a fee simple and all this sort of stuff, and peppercorn rents, and all, you know, all this. So no, and it's only the title that you're paying for. You don't actually own the land, and you don't own the title. You only hold the title. It's like your car. You're the keeper. What are you the keeper of? You're the keeper of the vehicle, and you hold the title. A keeper is not an owner. We want it back now. Thank you. We'll take it. Woof, it's gone. You won't pay your road tax, really? Oh, we'll take it off you. It's not yours anyway. You hold the title, and you hold the title to the legal fiction called your birth certificate. It's none of your business. You're acting in fraud by using it. You're acting in fraud by getting driving licenses, passports, national insurance numbers, all this sort of stuff. Right? It's but anyway, where's it? Now you know the fraud, and let's say, how are you going to come out of it? Well, you can come out of it just by stopping using all these things, right? But you have no protection in the law. Satan reckons, we're going to call Satan what it is, right? It's all the people, it's the spirit of the people, right, who do not read the book of the law. And even if they do, they don't understand it. Why don't they understand it? Because every priest swears an oath never to interpret the scripture to the congregation. And every priest is licensed, and every vicar is licensed. Right? They have permission to break the law. Like every person here who has a car with a license has permission to break the law. There are penalties, but you've still got permission. You are under limited liability. In God's world, or God's creation, you are under full liability. So if you break the law, you will suffer the consequences of it. And it's not as simple as dropping everything and saying, I'm going to come out. I'm not doing it. First of all, if you just drop everything and say, right, I don't believe in God, I certainly don't believe in Satan, but I can see that being a member of a country has satanic qualities to it, and I don't like this idea of being a member of the public. I'm coming out of it. Well, you commit treason if you do that. If you won't show allegiance to the sovereign, that's treasonous. And I think, well, I know I've spoken about this over suicide. I got it wrong, by the way, last time I did. I'm going to correct myself now. I said that if you commit suicide, what did I say? They'll lock you up. They'll lock you up if you commit suicide. That's not quite right. The Suicide Act came in, I think it was 1961, I think. But if you commit suicide, it's a treasonous thing, right? I'm not saying suicide is hanging yourself. No, suicide is getting shut of your legal person. It's having nothing to do with it. It's killing your civil life, right? You have a civil life attached to you, which is, again, your birth certificate, which is not a bond. And for me to encourage anybody into suicide is against the law. But if you do commit suicide and you don't have protection from the law, the law, not the legal, the law. Right? That means you're treasonous and he can do anything for you because you have no face before the law. You don't have your human rights and you don't have your God-given rights. You are lawless and they will come and do whatever they want to you. So before anybody starts going, right, I'm getting out of this system, you need to know what it's about first, how you're locked into it. And I keep saying this and I'll say it again. Servant King and read your Bible. Read your Bible. The Bible is not what we have all been programmed into thinking it is. These vicars, these priests are a gang of villains in my book. They are from the church of Satan. Everything for them is in the public interest. They say things like, well, if we didn't have that law, we'd have no law. Hang on, the law's there. This is the law. 10 commandments and 570 odd statutes. And there are penalties for people who steal. And there are benefits for people who have their goods stolen from them. They don't just get the car back. They'll get 4 cars back. And if their car is written off or sold to anybody else or given to somebody else or crushed, they have to give 7 cars back. Right? So there are benefits if you are the victim of a crime in there. In this system that you're in, because you own nothing, right? When somebody steals your car and you get caught and you get taken to court, they'll probably get a pat on the head, stick a dummy in their mouth saying he was deprived of a dummy when he was 3 years old, and we'll give him a fine of 200 quid. Do you get the 200 quid? No. The people get the 200 quid. It goes back in the public purse. But in between the public purse and the court, there's an agent there who's taking his cut out of it as well. And that's a corporation, I don't know, Capita or whoever it is. I'm not really interested. So this preparation time, you've got to sort of understand, first of all, why it happened, why we're in the mess we're in, and most importantly, how it happened. And then you've got to search the scripture and the law dictionaries and the law books to find the way out and get your property back, because we've all been given property by our God. And we've abandoned it and put it into a public purse called the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth, by the way, in charge of that is our friend Boris Johnson. And we all have warm feelings to him, don't we? So you need to know exactly what it is you've done. You need to be prepared not to do anything again and promise never to go back. And you've got to learn how to get your property back. And that isn't bloody easy. I don't know how many letters to the court I have written and how many times I've been to court and speaking to judges and talking down to these people. I'm talking about talking down to High Court, Queen's Bench judges. And they don't do anything because they know I'm right. And they know I'm not in contempt of court. They're in contempt of court. And they know I know that they are. And they shrug their shoulders and go, what can I do for you?
So have you succeeded in claiming your property back?
No, not yet. Not yet. But I believe it's going to happen pretty soon. And when it does, I'll be back here. I don't care who's talking, I'll just come back and say, there, I've got my property back. So, but to come out of the system, you've got to have protection of the law. Now, all priests and all vicars are licensed to carry out births, deaths, marriages and baptisms. Right? The birth, did I say it's not births? christenings, marriages, christenings, confirmations, marriages, deaths and baptisms. So you go and get christened, and you get, Catholics get given a Christian name, don't they? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, they need a
Confirmation name. Well, that name gets given to the registrar by the church. Yeah. Baptism, any baptisms that go on, the information is redirected to the registry office. So if you change your name, you get a baptismal name, it goes straight to the registry office. It's still the same person that's got it. Right? If you have anything to do with license, that means you're breaking the law. Right? So if you get a licensed baptism, you go to church, I'm going to get baptised, I'm going to be saved by God and Jesus and all this sort of stuff. It means nothing, because those churches are licensed by the state, by the government. They recognise the government's authority and go along to the, please have a licence to do this. Oh, you can have a licence, yeah. Can I please have a 501c so I'm tax exempt? Yeah. One of these free men on the land, his home is classed as a church and he's got a 501c. No names, no pact will, but those in the free man movement will know what I'm talking about. Yeah, well, whichever, I don't know the number, but you know what I'm talking about. Whichever free man it is, right, he's obviously not looked at the law properly, because it's against the law to have a licence. If you go and get a licence, you're asking for permission to break the law. When I passed my test back in, I don't know when it was, in the 70s or 80s, you know, the examiner gave me a document that said, there you go, you're competent to drive. If you want a licence, send it to the DVLA. Why would you want to do that when you've been confirmed as being a competent driver? Well, if that's the case, why do we need a licence? Why?
No, it expires. You have to get tested again.
A licence is permission to commit lawlessness and to commit trespass.
Yeah, well,
That's what it means, permission to commit a crime. And all they do is they bring in acts, as Parliament bring in the acts, and all they're waiting for, their people wait for, they know you're going to break the law, Thomas,
yeah,
and they bring out an act and say,
that's
yeah,
right.
we're just waiting for you to break the law.
That's right. Well, getting back to your point, you have to be retested after 12 months or whatever the case may be. Really? Really? So, that, on that basis, we're talking about public opinion here, right? Which means nothing to me, right?
I'm only going back off what it said on the test certificate.
No, no, I'm talking about when I passed my test, not when you passed your test. I'm talking about the 70s. Right, now you do not lose the ability to ride a bike when you can ride a bike. And you do not lose the ability to drive when you can drive. You know, you can drive. Okay, the roads are more congested and the cars are faster, but guess what? The brakes are better as well. Right? So you don't lose the ability to drive. Just that public perception. You say, oh no, the thing is, the government wants everything licensed. Right? We've all seen what this New World Order's bringing in, have we not? All this digital stuff. Has anybody seen 2045.com? You should look at that. All this transhumanist stuff that's coming in. That's frightening. That's absolutely, and it's coming. And it's coming. And I mean, look at the kids going around now with these mobile phones and this Pokemon and all that nonsense. Yeah, they're totally brainwashed. The language is getting changed through texting. You know.
Years ago, they've been working on it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
To get to 2045, they've been working on it since the 80s, I think.
Yeah, well, I was looking at it again because it's been a while since I've seen it, and I downloaded it onto my computer, and I was going through my old hard drive this afternoon, and I went, oh, I'll have a look at that again. My God, and this is, I think this download was 2009. Now, I watched it again, here we are 8, 9 years later, and I went, flipping heck, this is moving on quick, this. You know, and there's an old song, isn't it? You know, the Logical song by Supertramp in the 70s. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
You know, and they're making me digital. It talks all about this in that song. Anyway, so the preparation. The answer is baptism, by the way, right? And it means getting shut before you get baptised. Getting shut of everything that you've got. So if you think you own something, you don't own it, right? But while you are in the system, the book says, sell everything you've got and give it to the poor, right? But at that point, you're poor, aren't you? And you're going to have to live until you've worked everything out. Now, it's took me, well, since I was baptised, I'm actually baptised 3.5 years this coming week. Right, so I've served my time according to the scripture, right? And it works out bang on. If I'm writing what I'm thinking, what I've put in today at the court, it works out bang on scripturally that I won't be able to work it out until for 3.5 years. So I've had 3.5 years studies of this, right? I've had 3.5 years of studying the law. Well, I had more time studying the law dictionary, but not with the same zealousness as I have in the last 3.5 years. And the law dictionary and that book there cross-reference each other so much. It's just like it's explaining what's going on here. What you don't understand in here, if you pick up a law dictionary and look at the word that's using and look it up in the law dictionary, you start to understand this a heck of a lot better. Because this is the book of the law, and this is where the language is confused, and the definitions of all these words are in the law book. And your government is well aware of the iniquity, the theft and everything that's happened, right? And all their laws are a mirror image of what's going on in here, right? It's just a mirror image. But the people who are running this world, and when I say government, I'm not talking about MPs. They don't run the world. They're just bloody puppets who get told what to do and they do it. They just don't want you to read this, right? They do not want you to read that book, and they certainly don't want you to understand it. So the advice from that book, right, is sell everything you've got, right? Stick your money somewhere so that when you do get baptised, you've got something to live off in the time that it's going to take you to understand the answer to getting your property back. And that is it really is a lot of thinking, a lot of studying. It says, be as wise as the serpent and as harmless as a dove. The serpent is only wise because it understands what these words mean in here.
Guileless as doves.
Sorry?
It's guileless as doves.
Well, I haven't got that part of the scripture access to straight away, but the way I read it, it says harmless. Right? That's what I've read. I shall have a look. You know, I shall have a look. What book are you reading? Which version are you reading?
I read the authorized version as you have, and I read the
Okay, I'm not gonna say you're wrong. I'm gonna say I will check it out, but I remember it being as wise as a dove. Yeah. As harmless as a dove, sorry. As wise as a serpent. But anyway, you know, you could be right. I shall have a... you could be right, I could be wrong. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But and there's no need to pick me up and be so bloody pedantic with me, right, over something like that. It's saying being as wise as serpent. In other words, understand what the serpent's doing. Don't go and attack the serpent, because if you do that, you're going to suffer the consequences. because this serpent has a lot of people, has a lot of devils along with him, and a lot of enforcers of his law. The problem is, up to now, I've not seen anybody who enforces God's law. We live in a godless country. It's totally godless. The courts are full of Satanists. Your authorities are full of Satanists. They're all in these secret societies who, well, they're coming for a fall as well. But, you know, I mean, for those who are in the Masons, well, for those who are not in the Masons but know the way what that's all about, you know that the worship in Lucifer, you should know the worship in Lucifer, right, which is the fallen star. And that's quite right. But anyway, so if you've been baptised, if you have, you've wasted your time, because you've been baptised in a satanic church, and they're all satanic. So you need to get your house in order first. Set a time where you've got no ties, and your graven image is broken down to the ground, and they can't come back at you and understand. You need to find out how this serpent, these Satanists and this serpent operates, and what he uses that gives him power. And the thing that gives him power is that birth certificate. It doesn't give you power. It takes your power away. Right? The atonement takes place. It doesn't take place by you at registration, right? But it's set up ready for you, right? You know, God says, turn your face from me, I turn my face from you, right? So the birth certificate is basically subordinate into perjury. Your parents can do whatever they want with you because they own you, or they think they own you, and they think they know what's better for you, right? So they think to themselves, oh, we'll have to register him because otherwise we won't get a passport, he can't come on holiday with us, or she's sick, she can't go to hospital, or they can't go to school if they haven't got a birth certificate, you know. So they think they're doing good for you, only because it's the only thing that they know. They don't know that they've had their property taken away. We're all supposed to have a piece of land that we can live off, our family can live off, and we can profit from it. Because all wealth comes from the land. Now that land has been taken away, or we've given it away, we've abandoned it, and we've created an adhesion contract through this birth certificate, which is till death. And that's what civil death is. You kill your civil life off, and then you can start living life as you're supposed to. You know, having nobody coming along to your house and saying, hey, you know, shut your curtains, it's lights out. You know, it's the Second World War, you had to have bloody black curtains up, they couldn't have a light on. And all this sort of stuff, and public water authorities, and they're throwing all sorts of shite in the water. And vaccinations, they're pumping all sorts of shite into our children. And the kids love it as well, don't they? The kids love it. And we're getting all these weirdos going into schools now, teaching our kids all sorts of immoral stuff that, you know, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the, you know, at the next coming, if you like. So, is it like Sodom and Gomorrah now? Well, just go down to your cities and have a look on a Friday night and see what's going on there. Have a look on your social network sites and all these dating sites and all this sort of stuff. I mean, I've heard some stories of... I don't have the internet anymore.
The internet's a spider's web.
But yeah, it is a spider's web, and it's the only thing that spies on you. People have got these bloody things, Elixir. What the hell's... I'm talking to my friend in the summer last year in her garden, and I said something next thing. I heard this voice up. There's somebody in the house there. Oh no, that's Alexa. I said, who's Alexa? Oh, it's this little box. Ask her a question, it'll tell you the answer. I was talking to another friend only a few days ago about this, and he tells me, if you ask Alexa, who's Jesus, she doesn't say a word. You can't text it or nothing on your mobile phones if you've got spell check. Now Jesus, look, Jesus was sent by God, right, to magnify the law, right, and
to fulfill and magnify the law.
To fulfill the law, and also to save us, right? God demanded a blood sacrifice for certain crimes, right? There are penalties for crimes against God, right? And some of them are capital punishments where you have to die, right? Now, he came so you didn't have to die. And none of your animals had to die for your sins, because Jesus paid for the sins. Jesus was not registered. Jesus was not registered. His death was, but he wasn't. But he turns up 3 days later. See, I told you there was the Son of God. I am not... By the way, what they're teaching in church, that Jesus is God, is a lie. He wasn't God. He was a man. And also, Mary is not the mother of God. Mary is the mother of Jesus. That's another lie that you're being told. How can God have a mother? It would be, if Mary was the mother of God, she would be God. Because she would create God. That's lunacy. And they're telling us this. Well, I don't go to church, and the last time I went to church was when my mum died, and that's 9 years ago. I certainly wouldn't set foot anywhere near one now. Jesus is not God. Don't be kidded by that. He was a man. But he done something brilliant, which was he knew what he had to do. He had to fulfill the law so that the blood payment was made, so that everybody here can be saved and get their property back and redeem themselves to what they actually are. You are deemed to be a legal fiction. Deemed. In other words, act as if. The courts know that you're not a legal fiction. The copper doesn't, because he's a dimwit, right? The customs guy doesn't know, because he's another dimwit. Your teachers don't know this, they're another dimwit. You have been taught by a tutor alienist. I mentioned that last week. For those of you with the law dictionary, look it up. Tutor alienist. You've been taught by something that doesn't want you to learn anything. It wants to learn you all sorts of bullshit about dinosaurs. That's the first thing. It wants to tell you all about Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, which is only a theory. There's no fact to it whatsoever. And it's a scientific theory. How can science be a theory? Science is fact, it's knowledge. It's not a belief system. So there's no such thing as a scientific theory. So we've been taught, and we've had our language pasteurised, cleaned up, just so that we understand the words to get by in a world. Whereas these barristers and judges, when they speak to you, they're speaking in a completely different language, using the same words, and you bury yourself with your answers. You go in there and say, yeah, that's me. Where do you live? Oh, really? Well, where do I live? I live here, inside this physical body. That's where I live. I don't know what happens when I go to sleep. I don't know what happens when I die. But when I'm awake and conscious and got the light of God, and we've all got the light of God in us. Light is the spirit, it's the consciousness. Right? Some of us have more light of, or the lesser light of Satan, right? But we still have the light within us. Our life is of the Creator. Whatever the Creator, and he's not this guy with a beard in the sky. It's something that we can't even imagine it to be. I know a few builders in my time, and I was in the building trade for some time, and I've never seen anybody who even thought about making another earth. Where are they going to get the materials from to make this earth? So something has created everything. Now, if you think you own property, you're mad. We cannot own property. We can be granted dominion over it of the one who made it. But we can't say, that's mine. You can have a higher claim on the dominion of that property above any other man. Yeah. You can have what you would say is your own dominion of that property. But you don't own it. You don't own it. And in your system, I say your system because, you know, I'm sort of acted according to the will, right? And everybody's in this satanic system. You don't own any property in your system either. But the rules change on a daily basis at the Houses of Parliament. That law, not rules, that law never changes. You stick with that law, you'll be okay. You stick with their law, it's changing all the time. How can you keep up with it? You can't keep up with it. Especially the pace of change that's going on now. Bloody hell, a couple of months ago, they brought into law, at the stroke of a pen, without any consultation whatsoever, they brought 1,000 new laws in, European laws, signed into your British Constitution. Do you know what they are? Has anybody looked to see what they are? No. You just follow the crowd. Did you know it's against law to register your child? If you don't register your child, they'll come and get you. Well done. I've just quoted you from the 1953 Registration Act. That it's against law to register your child unless you find a child that's abandoned in the public. In other words, left alone to its own means, to fend for itself. They're the only circumstances that you can register a child. So therefore, oh, you're abandoned it. No. Time. We got 10 minutes for questions? No? Any questions? Five. Yeah. Okay. Questions? Anybody?
If Jesus isn't God, why did he say, I and the Father are one?
Sorry?
So if Jesus isn't God, why did he say, I and the Father are one?
Yeah. That's right.
Well,
That's right.
Why?
Yeah.
So if he isn't God, why did he say,
How many times did he say, I'm not God?
I said,
I am not he who sent me. I'm not God. How many times? Him and his father was one in law. Yeah. I could edify on that and magnify on that, but I'm not going to. And there's a reason why I'm not going to, is because I might give too much information out to well, this video will probably get watched by some undesirables who might, oh, I'll use that. That's right, Jesus and God were one. Just like me and my dad was one. Just like you and your dad were one. Just like anybody here are at one with their mother or father. That's right. But he said, I'm not God. I am not he who sent me. How many times did he say that? How many times? Even scales. So, Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but oysters and all that, it says don't eat them, you know. But there's rules there. I don't know the reason.
Jesus said it's not what you put in that defiles you, it's what comes out.
He was talking in a parable. He was talking rhetorically. Remember I said at the start of this, last week, I give you 5 loaves. This week I'm going to give you 2 fish. What's that all about?
The whole of Galatians is about overthrowing the law. We came to throw the law over.
No, it says at the very start of the book, this is the law which shall be forever.
Galatians,
Sorry?
Galatians, read it all.
I've read it. This is the law, you shall keep my law from now until, that's it. Not until, but this is the law throughout all your generations. And you're supposed to stick to it. Those who say that the law is hung up on the cross with Jesus are misinterpreting the Bible. They are totally misinterpreted. So, okay, so the law's gone with Jesus. Right, okay. Give us the keys to your car. No, I'm saying give us the keys to your car. I'm stealing off you. It's okay. No, it's lawful for me. It's lawful for me to take your car. That's right. Yeah. It's not one jot or tittle will be taken from the law. That's what he says. He hasn't come here for that. He's come here to fulfill the law. So those people who are sinners, who've broken the law by carrying on to this graven image and stealing everything, can come back.
Says, your father was a liar and a murderer from the start. And
that's right.
About Cain was talking about Yahweh, that is Satan.
Who's Yahweh?
God.
I don't think I've seen Yahweh in here. I've not seen Yahweh in here.
God made, in the beginning, God made heaven and the earth. That's it. The rest of them is Satan. And that's what binds you to the slave ticket.
Well, no, what binds you to the slave ticket is your birth certificate. I've just told you.
Yeah, but then,
It was a settlement certificate or something else. It was called a tax certificate. They've changed the name of this thing that binds you. Called it a tax certificate, a settlement certificate. Now it's a registration certificate. When the new system comes in, it's going to be called something else. They changed the name of something.
but if
For
they're
the,
basing it all on the Bible, which we probably do,
Yeah.
it's still Satan's law. It's not
the government is Satan's law.
Jesus was sent by the Creator God, not that God out of the Old Testament.
Right, okay. Well, let's agree to differ. Let's agree to differ. But on that basis, it would be okay for me to come and kill you and nothing had happened to me. On that basis.
Not necessarily, because Jesus came to show us how to be, and that's not what he would teach. To love each other, love one another as I've loved you.
Yeah, but if I was to kill somebody in this room on that basis, yeah, but if the law's gone and I kill somebody on that basis. How many times in the New Testament does it say, keep my commandments? How many times? Keep my commandments. It's the whole duty of man.
My commandments.
Yeah. God said, if you love me, keep my commandments. And Jesus is the Son of God. Anyway, this is, because it's a misinterpretation of what's going on in the Scripture. Sorry? Well, I've never read the word Yahweh in there.
Not to slay animals, not to spill blood. He said it over and over.
Yeah.
So why does then he go contradicting himself by telling him to do that? There's two.
Because you're misreading it. You're not misreading it, you're misinterpreting things. This is a book. Yeah, this is a book of rhetoric, allegory, and the law. But anyway, okay, thanks for your time. The point of it is, you know that you're in fraud. That's it.
Thanks very much, Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you.